Welcome back from the break. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on NewsX. Days ahead of the Beijing Winter Olympics, the host city in China has reported what is supposedly its first locally transmitted case of Omicron. Several provinces in China are now facing complete or partial lockdown due to a sharp rise in cases. While a handful of countries have decided to boycott the Winter Olympics, 91 countries, including China, will be sending representatives and competitors to participate in the event. With the disturbing news of a massive COVID spread in China, could this be a super spreader event? India, remember, has still opted to participate in this event. What are the potential risks that will be faced by countries deciding to go to China for the Olympics is something we will be looking at over the course of the next half an hour. Joining us at this point is Ambassador Veena Sikri, former diplomat. We also have Professor Swaran Singh, China expert, joining us live. Padma Shri Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, Chairman and MD Nephron, is live with us. Dr. Abhishek Pratap Singh, Foreign Affairs expert, also joins us live. Ambassador Veena Sikri, do you believe it's a wise decision to hold a potentially super spreader Olympics given what the world is going through currently?
Yeah, I think that it's an event that is increasingly coming under a question mark. And the reason for that is that just in the last few days, there have been estimates coming out of data analysis from China showing that their deaths could be as high as 1.7 million. You know, they have declared something around 5,000 or less than 5,000 deaths beginning with January 2020. But the figures now coming out show that this is a vast underestimation. And these 5,000 deaths that they declared were just from the Wuhan region and the Hubei province, as if there were no other deaths in the rest of China. But the calculations show there could have been a huge amount of deaths. And if that is so, if that is the extent of to which data is being hidden, 17,000% underreporting of data, I think the present situation where we are getting tricklings of information about the Omicron having been brought for the first time, about lockdowns in Tianjin region, about lockdowns even in Beijing, lockdowns in the Guangdong province, in the Guangzhou region, and even in Hong Kong, there are reports of problems. So obviously, when these reports are coming out, we know that the situation must be much, much more serious than it is being declared. One channel carried a report about how people are being forcibly quarantined in metal boxes, in metal containers. They're being just taken from their homes, pushed into the metal containers, and food is being fed to them as though they're in a jail. So it's a very scary and unknown situation about the situation of COVID-19 within China. We all know also that the estimates about the efficacy of the Chinese vaccine, the Sinopharm vaccine against COVID-19, is also under doubt. And the most optimistic estimates say it has a 50% efficacy, others put it even lower. So if the efficacy of the vaccine, the one vaccine that they have available for their people, no doubt they must have given booster doses also, but if the efficacy is so low and you're getting this information about breakouts in different parts, widely geographically separated parts of China, I think it is a matter for some worry, and it's time to call China out on this one, to call out their statistics. They should inform the world what is the real situation in China, and they should not put the rest of the world at risk by allowing people to come in large numbers for the Beijing Winter Olympics and then having a big super spreader event on their hands. I think there is time yet. There is a need for a review, a need for a sharper analysis and a sharper call out for information, correct information from China about what has happened in the country so far and how are they facing the present situation. We don't even know if the Sinopharm vaccine is at all effective against Omicron. And we don't know the extent to which it's the Omicron wave versus the earlier Delta wave, whether the Delta virus is still there or it is the Omicron virus. We just don't have enough information. And there is a need to be careful.
No doubt. And of course, also, apart from the situation abroad, the fact is that there are now new variants the world over which are extremely contagious. There will be athletes from all these countries from where new variants are reporting converging in Beijing, and also there is a new Chinese variant too, which China is being very cagey about, isn't it, Professor Swaran Singh? Is it a wise decision to go ahead with this event?
Obviously, this is not an ideal situation to hold Winter Olympics. But we can't look at the Chinese case in isolation. We have seen that Tokyo also held Olympics. Europe has had football matches. Several other countries have had their own political, religious, cultural gatherings constantly. In face of the fact that all we are saying right now, we can doubt the Chinese statistics. I fully agree with Ambassador Sikri. People don't normally trust Chinese statistics. But what we have is about 300 infections in Tianjin, 90 miles distance from Beijing, where these Winter Olympics are being hosted. And the Chinese have said on Saturday they found the first infection in Beijing, and that they have created a special safe loop in which the athletes will be sort of moving around in Beijing. Lockdowns have been strictly implemented. So if we put it along with several other, even Olympics or football matches happening around the world, in face of much larger specter of infections simultaneously happening in those cities, Chinese would have their way of justifying as to why they would like to have Winter Olympics, whereas other countries have had them in worse circumstances. What is also closely related issue is that Western countries, about almost a dozen of them now, have used this occasion to showcase their concerns about human rights. Now that's an added issue which is making some countries very precisely what they call diplomatic boycott of Winter Olympics. China has been concerned for various reasons, and therefore I think the response that international community has as to how to use, I'm intentionally using the word use, Winter Olympics to sort of take different stances of criticizing China. It's in that context that this kind of debate is taking place. Otherwise, look around the world. Your own city has 20,000 plus daily infections, and look at how people are living in your own city, New Delhi. And so also in Tokyo, New York, and other places, which are all 20 plus thousand infections every day. So, in that sense, one has to be extremely cautious. And if other countries can hold it, so can China.
Yes, indeed. Let me, in fact, also at this point get in then Padma Shri Dr. Sanjeev Bagai. Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, as a medical expert, sir, you do know that such events are places where the virus can multiply and the virus can, of course, spread. Would you then believe that this is a potential super spreader?
Good evening, everyone. I'm of a very firm belief that these Olympic Games, first of all, should not have been held. They should have been postponed, at least for the time being, indefinitely. And if they are being held for whatever reason, China wants to showcase and divert the world's attention away from them, I think most countries, if not all, should have boycotted it, including India. Let me first talk about the medical aspects. This is not the Delta variant. This is the Omicron. This is supposed to be approximately 20 to 40 times more evasive of the immunity as far as Delta is concerned. It's 6 to 8 times more transmissible and 70 times more spreading from the upper respiratory tract. Winter increases the spread in terms of transmissibility. We know that this can travel up to 60 feet. There are now reports that it can travel up to 600 to 800 feet in closed environments. It can linger on in the air for 9.2 hours. So we know that the relative humidity and the winter temperature promotes the spread more. We know that China is one amongst the most polluted countries. The pollution increases, the PM 2.5 increase enhances the transmission. We know that this is also what we call as a very high breakthrough infection rates of five and a half folds more as compared to Delta. Having said that, this is carrying an R naught, which is equal to, if not more than measles. And so far, measles has been one of the biggest scourges of for the last century or so, before the measles vaccines became widely available. It's carrying an R naught of more than 12. Delta at its peak had reached an R naught of 8. Having said that, we have no information on China. So let's talk about China now specific, away from Omicron. We have no information. The world has been engulfed with wave after wave. India's had the third wave. US and most parts of European Union have had the fourth to the fifth wave. There is no data which comes out from there. We know the case fatalities. and we know the infectivity rate literally on a daily basis in most Western countries. We don't know a single thing for the last 2 years of what is happening in the closed, opaque society of China. We don't know what the vaccine efficacy was before the vaccines were approved by WHO, and I very strongly feel that WHO should not have approved it because there was substandard and suboptimal vaccines. There are case reports now which has come from Southeast Asia that the efficacy is well below 50%. There are some case reports is down to 30%. That means you are now exposing a group of international travelers and athletes into an environment which is a potential and definite going to be a super spreader event in the Olympic Village, in the cafeterias, in contact sports, in closed areas, which is bound to spread. Now, we have no idea of what kind of containment measures they're doing at the present moment. Obviously, the infection is still rampaging, different towns, different cities, in different intensities. Now, what these guys do is they lock them up, be it metal or non-metal boxes. Now, after that, their own citizens live or die. I don't think they care. But really, these international athletes who are coming into an environment where the own Chinese athletes presumably would have got the substandard vaccines. Now, the large section of China has got those kind of vaccines. So it's like jumping from the fire into the frying pan. Politically, I think India should make a very strong statement not to deal with these Olympics at all. There are no repercussions at all. India is a force to reckon with in no uncertain terms. Most countries should actually boycott this completely and altogether. So I'm not happy with the situation. We know that the Summer Olympics were delayed by a year and a quarter, but still we saw a surge in Japan, and Japan suffered because of that. We know that the Euro 2000 was held and the infection spread. We know that all these events where there is gathering of crowds, it is bound to spread. So my own personal feeling on medical, geopolitical, and purely based on the genomic part of the virus now as a variant of Omicron, not to go put China on guard.
Right. Let me, in fact, also then bring in Dr. Abhishek Pratap Singh here. Abhishek Pratap Singh, as far as India is concerned, anyways, there have been many questions over whether countries should boycott these Olympics or not. Do you believe, given the health concerns, we do have a fitting reason to pull out now? Dr. Singh, I think you're on mute. Abhishek? You'll have to unmute yourself if you can hear me. Okay, I think we're having some problem there with Abhishek. Ambassador Veena Sikri, there were anyways question marks over whether, many countries would just go in for a diplomatic boycott of the games, whether they would even send contingents there. Do you believe now with these health concerns, countries do have a fitting reason to pull out, particularly India too?
I think that, first of all, I must say that I fully agree with what Dr. Sanjeev Bagai has said. They're very, very important scientific, medical, and very valid reasons. I think the first step should be to immediately demand full information from China on what is happening. And I think that it is most unlikely that you'll ever get any information. And when they refuse to give the information, then certainly there should be a call for a boycott, because there is no information. I mean, they're just saying the first Omicron case has been detected now, and we don't even know what has been happening all this while. That means the Delta cases are still prominent in China, and we know how terrible they have been and how their Sinopharm vaccine has not been able to stop the spread of the virus. They have a zero COVID control policy, zero COVID policy all across China, very harsh controls. It has still not been effective enough. It is still bringing in the spread. So obviously there is something wrong even with their approach to controlling the spread of the virus. And I think that there is a need to ask a lot of harsh questions, strong and factual and demanding questions from China, asking them that, look, we need to know, because we need to know if athletes should come there and expose themselves to all this terribly dangerous situation that Dr. Dr. Sanjeev Bagai spoke about. We do know that, yes, events were held in other countries, but those were in a situation of complete openness. I mean, even in Australia, we've seen this one case of, Novak Djokovic, where he filled a form wrong, his visa has been denied. Because there's a complete openness in that society, and nobody will stand for this kind of situation. So in this situation in the Beijing Winter Olympics, when there are going to be a large number of people, when it's going to be a completely enclosed situation, except for the actual events, of course, which are held outdoors, but in your cafeteria, in your rooms, etc., a completely closed situation, close proximity of the various athletes and the office officials over there. So I think that it's potentially a very hazardous and dangerous situation, which medically can go out of control into a super spreader event. And there is need to ask very specific, very harsh questions about the situation there. Where are all these? Tianjin is just next to Beijing. Beijing itself has seen cases. They are talking about a complete clampdown in Beijing. Nobody will be allowed to move, etc., etc. Inward flights are cancelled and so on. So it shows a situation about which the authorities there are concerned, definitely concerned, but about which no information is being given to the rest of the world. So this is a very iniquitous situation, where the rest of the world doesn't know what is happening. Still, they're expected to send athletes in large numbers to participate. And every country has the right to inform their athletes about what the situation is, what are the problems they could face, what are the medical hazards they could face. So to inform their citizens who are participating, each country must know the factual situation. And I think that through the WHO and directly, we should get these answers from China. And certainly if the answers are not available, even if the answers are available and they're not satisfactory, then there should be a call for a boycott.
Okay, I'm being told Dr. Abhishek Pratap Singh is back with us now. Dr. Abhishek Pratap Singh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you.
I was asking you about what India's strategy should be. Do you believe with the health concerns now, we should pull out and perhaps other countries will follow suit?
Pull out from China, you mean?
From the
Can you
games.
repeat the question?
From the games.
No. Acha, from the games, you see. I mean, since the very beginning, I mean, it's almost 2 years have passed since the corona pandemic has happened. And China has always been completely not informing the world, neither the agencies, neither the ruling bodies, or neither the other neighboring countries about what is happening within China. And this is very unique with the authoritarian model that China has been set up. So I would suggest that keeping in mind the security concern, keeping in mind the hopeless situation on the bilateral front between India and China, and keeping in mind larger humanitarian concerns, I mean, this is one option that India could look upon in the near future. Having said that, I would also like to insist that the larger decision and the larger concerns should be made with the major countries, the major partners who are going to play in the game along with India. And all these things has to be accommodated in line with what the WHO has to say, what the Olympic Committee has to say, and what the assurance the international bodies are giving. But it could be an option that India can opt out for the game, not just in a boycotting manner, but just withdrawing from the game, citing the health and security reasons. And that is a fair call.
Okay. Let me in fact bring in there Professor Swaran Singh as well at this point. Professor Swaran Singh, there are 8 countries diplomatically boycotting the game so far. Now, there still are though 91 countries participating. With this sudden spike in China, do you believe these 8 countries who are diplomatically boycotting could consider a complete boycott? Or is that quite unlikely, practically speaking?
Uday, let me say that, if wishes were horses, we would have really touched the skies in those cases. There is a desirability of the situation and there's a feasibility. And I'm sure Ambassador Sikri fully understands in diplomacy, you focus on the feasible part. You yourself said 91 countries are participating fully. 8 countries are participating in terms of athletes going, but their diplomats will not be going. Sinopharm, Dr. Bagai mentioned about Sinopharm vaccines. You have to depend on WHO, and WHO approved it. 71 countries approved and accepted Sinopharm vaccines. So in that sense, you can keep saying we don't trust China. I will be agreeable with you saying that you can't trust Chinese. There are reasons why you can't trust Chinese. But reality on the ground is that most countries are joining the Winter Olympics. 8 countries are saying only diplomatic boycott. And in that sense, the Chinese will go ahead and conduct these Winter Olympics, partly because several other, Summer Olympics happened in Tokyo, despite, the fact that certain amount of infections went up after that. So in that sense, you see, your neighboring Prime Minister Imran Khan is going to attend the ceremony. President Vladimir Putin is going to attend the ceremony, and there will be, maybe half a dozen other heads of state, national leaders joining. So in that sense, you see the bulk of the international community, barring 8 Western countries, are virtually going to be, participating in these games. And last point, let me add, why simply, focus on denying athletes who've been preparing for 4 years all the time to, showcase. And very often these are once in a lifetime occasions for athletes. If their safety security is being guaranteed, and Chinese have, I want to underline that we don't trust Chinese is a separate matter, but Chinese have already said there will be at least one test prescribed before anyone travels to Beijing, and series of tests once you land in Beijing. So they have outlined their strategy as to how they wish to deal with the safety, security and health, and creating a special loop for athletes. Now, they have outlined what they want to do, how they want to do. It is for us to trust or not to trust. And I would say, yes, in ideal circumstances, India could stand up and say, we are really withdrawing from the Winter Olympics. But if, you ask me what is my hunch about it, I don't think India will be kind of isolating itself to become the only country to really totally boycott, whereas nobody else is totally boycotting these Winter Olympics. And some of these 8 countries that are talking of diplomatic boycott, I think they're not so much concerned with the health issues or health threats. Otherwise, they will not send their athletes there. They are diplomatic boycotting it primarily because of their human rights accusations on China and not on health issues. So even those 8 countries are not saying that because of Omicron going up in numbers in certain cities, in neighboring cities of Beijing. So in that sense, let us be a little more pragmatic and see where things are. And if you still wish to, propose that India should completely withdraw from it or boycott from it, it could be, I think, really living in a fool's paradise.
All right. Well, let's leave it at that. We've run completely out of time. My thanks to our guests for joining us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.